DirtTrax is sponsored by Can-Am, the ride says it all. Polaris, the ultimate in off-road vehicles. Hatfield McCoy Trails, where hundreds of miles of off-road adventure await you today. Yamaha ATVs and side-by-side vehicles, real world tough. And by Honda. Check out the growing family of Honda ATVs and side-by-sides.
As outlined in last week's episode, the battle for ultimate horsepower has hit the sport ute category in a pretty big way. And if you watched last week's episode, you're left wondering either why do we need that much or what's next? As for me, I'm in the latter category. The Scrambler and Renegade 1000 are the biggest, baddest, and most outrageous ATVs in the industry. They are freaking cool everywhere you look, boast horsepower that's bordering on mental, and include options that are far superior to all others. So how could you possibly make the best better? Well, I'm going to show you. The Renegade 1000 took King of the Castle in last week's shootout and won the battle, and I fully agree with Luke's choice of making the Renegade 1000 number one. But at the same time, I know how to make this Rennie even better. The XXC Renegade comes with Fox Podium piggyback shocks. They are a very good shock, work well, and deliver a quality ride. That being said, they're built for a price point and factory spec to Can-Am's requirements. Is that bad? Well, no, but Fox builds the Factory Series RC2 that are so much better. Factory Series means factory specs, and at the Fox factory they do not hold back. These shocks feature the best technology available and are built specifically for our Renegade. Right up front, you're going to notice these shocks' pretty golden brown color. It's not just a nice look, that color represents the genuine Kashima coating on both the shock body and the piggyback. What is Kashima? Well, it's a proprietary hard anodizing process where the end result is a much smoother surface that not only reduces friction, it also greatly increases the life of wearable parts that come in contact with the Kashima coated surface, provides greater lubrication at higher temperatures, and reduces corrosion exponentially better than a basic non-coated shock. Just like ounces of weight reduction create pounds of improvement, small incremental changes to the shock will increase the performance of the ride, and that's specifically what the Kashima coat does. Adding to those changes are premium iBox springs that have been specifically spec'd for the Renegade's weight. While the springs are only single stage, they do a great job assisting the damping of the shock and are a noticeably different diameter from stock. At the end of the day, the most noticeable improvement is going to be the valving of these shocks. Fox is a performance-based company, so they're able to focus their valving on the performance riders. You can't blame Can-Am. They have to appeal to a broader range of users, but Fox is looking to deliver a premium shock to those who know the difference. These Factory Series RC2 piggybacks are buttery smooth when tearing up the track, accept huge impacts with zero bottom out, and feature the velocity-sensitive damping control technology that delivers custom-tuned valving for every application. And while I'm on the topic of custom tuning, the fact that these shocks have high and low speed compression as well as rebound adjustability and the threaded spring preload means that you are going to get the perfect ride every single time. You can count on that. With two simple tools, you can literally custom tune your ride to precisely compress in both high speed and low speed impact situations, as well as rebound or return the shock to extension at your custom rate. Out on the trail, this means you're not only going to be able to float through the higher speed chop, you're going to be set to crush the nasty square edge holes, fly over fallen trees and exposed roots, and allow your suspension to smoothly rebound when launching over trailside kickers.
This shock truly delivers the best performance possible for a bike like this Renegade XXC. If you're looking for the best of the best, look no further than the Fox Podium RC2 Factory Series.
DirtTrax is sponsored by Brimstone, where the journey is your reward.
I've always found it interesting to learn about where the companies I deal with came from and get to know the personalities behind the brand. Understanding the passion and motivation behind the products I'm buying gives me great confidence in their performance. Martin Barkey at MBRP is a perfect example of this. I've known Martin for many years and understand very well his passion and addiction to all things fast and loud. But I wanted to get to know Martin's history and learn about how MBRP became one of the world's leading performance exhaust manufacturers.
My passion for automotive definitely started at home. I can remember pedal cars back in the day, you know, running around the house, the yard. I can remember my father's first snowmobile. My father had a performance exhaust manufacturing company, one-car garage. So I think right from day one, it was just cars, automobiles, loud, going fast, and instilled from my father and his line of work and his passion, and it just became natural.
Why do we trust Martin and MBRP with our performance toys? Because he's just like us. He fully understands that inward desire for more horsepower, more performance, and more speed.
Motorsports for me started with drag racing, actually. Very first street race, I was telling somebody that my father was the flag person. My father was standing in the middle of Highway 11, dropping his arms for a buddy of mine in a '69 Camaro, and I was in a Pro Street Ford Courier. And then, you know, growing up through teens, my early 20s, it became evident that going fast, being competitive, racing, drag racing, road racing, it doesn't matter. I'll race my buddies in a golf cart going from hole 1 to hole 2 nowadays.
Every company has a beginning, and MBRP started small with just Martin and his father building and selling products out of the back of a pickup truck. There was no corporate backing, no advertising budgets, no fancy retail space. Just two guys with a passion for making things go faster.
My father had a shop in Amsdale, and he was producing motorcycle exhaust systems for a private label building for the likes of Lang Hindle, Canada's #1 road racer back in the 60s and 70s. And Dad was still doing these, you know, I'll fix this, I'll repair that. So people would bring in their lawnmowers for a muffler, they'd bring in their tractors for a muffler, they'd bring in their, you know, snowmobiles, their mini bikes, their kids' mini bikes, their cars. Long story short, I saw this muffler that he built, and I said to him, you know, we should build that in production. After some prototypes, after some test fitting, after some designing, Dad would build these, and I would go and drywall by day and paint B&B eliminators by night. And I would load up a minivan or whatever truck I had at the time and go knocking door to door and try selling, you know, what was at that time the B&B Eliminator.
The small-scale success Martin had achieved with the B&B Eliminator drove him to expand his business with the hope of turning a shop in a one-car garage into something more.
And obviously when you start in snowmobiles and you start as small as we did with you know, just a few B&B Eliminators, we wanted to grow that into a much larger line. We rented a bigger shop. We thought we'd get into automotive. And one of the first segments we got into was sport compact. And we started building one-off systems here and there, and it was not met with high hopes by any means. It was, we were trying to enter into a market that was already established with multi-million-dollar companies, and here I was lying on my back in a dirt floor in a shop here in Huntsville, trying to develop, you know, a system for a Sunfire or a Cavalier. At the same time, I was doing very much like what my father had done back in the day. You might bring me your Mustang, or someone would bring me their truck, and I would build a one-off system, cut and weld, and I'd buy bends from my father, and I had a welder, and, you know, away we go. It gave us an insight into what maybe we wanted to do and what at that time was the off-season. I don't know what happened, but the day that we decided to go into diesel pickup trucks, and you know, let's try building dual exhaust for diesels. Let's try building 4-inch turbo backs. Must have been the day that the diesel market started up and people said, I want duals, I want stacks, I want smokers, I want turbo backs. Because again, you know, we've been blessed with sales and partnerships and distribution partnerships beyond belief, and to what you see here today. For me, anything with a motor, anything that can go fast, anything that can have performance boosted has always been of interest to me, for sure.
Despite huge success, Martin has never lost that passion for performance and go-fast toys that started him on this path in the very beginning. With a little bit more resources and a lot more experience, Martin has now taken up professional road racing.
So racing and how it ties into our companies is really simple. I mean, it's based off of the passion that I have to start with, the competitiveness that I've always had, both in business and on the track now today.
But the racing serves more than one purpose. Yes, he loves it and lives it day in and day out. But Martin knows for his products to have credibility, whether it be on a car, truck, or ATV, those products have to be tested and proven under the harshest conditions.
It's easy to put a car in a dyno here right behind me and say, oh, we make horsepower. It's easy to make it shiny and have a consumer say, wow, that looks killer or sounds killer. But let's put the products on the track. Let's test them. I mean, we're talking endurance racing. We're talking, banging it off of 7, 8, 9,000 RPM over and over and over again. We're talking of seeing temperatures that you'll never see on the street. If it lasts on the racetrack, is it going to last for you on the street? We think so.
From building snowmobile mufflers in his dad's garage to professional level road racing, Martin has come a long way. But despite the huge success of his business, one thing has remained the same. Martin is just like you and me, a motorhead who loves to go fast and wants to squeeze as much performance as possible out of his go fast toys.
What is MBRP today? It was from day one, and it is still today. It's about passion, it's about integrity, it's about producing a good quality product that, I wouldn't ask you to put it on, or I wouldn't ask my customers to put it on their vehicle if we wouldn't put it on our own first.
DirtTrax is sponsored by Super ATV, the industry leader in aftermarket parts and accessories for the off-road market.
Yamaha's Grizzly 700 has been high on our want-to-like list for some time. When it was first released, it was a serious contender in what was, at the time, the big bore 4x4 class. But time and its competition have marched on. And incremental changes will only get you so far. While its competition saw motor upgrades, new chassis, and complete redesigns, the Grizzly has stayed very much the same. Until now, that is. I'm not going to try and suggest the changes Yamaha has made to the 2014 Grizzly constitute a complete redesign, and I'm not going to suggest they put it on par with today's 800 class rides. From the outside, you might not see anything different, but the changes made inside the 2014 Grizzly are way more than just fluff, and they go a long way towards making this vehicle more competitive in its class. The 700cc fuel-injected single found in the Grizzly has always been an extremely reliable engine that produced decent power when you take into account its one-cylinder handicap. It's got good bottom end, pulls hard through the mid-range, and posts decent top-end numbers. But it's always lacked that wow factor we get with vehicles with similar displacement spread across multiple cylinders. For 2014, Yamaha has reworked the Grizzly's motor with a new forged piston and updated cylinder head design. While they haven't gained any more horsepower, the improvement in bottom end pull is significant. For the most part, it's the low end power that makes an ATV feel fast in the woods anyway, so this is a good improvement for the Grizzly. But at 45.6 horsepower, it's still lagging behind its big bore competition. Even Polaris's Sportsman 570 puts out 44 horsepower, and Can-Am's Outlander 650 puts out 62. While these new motor updates to the Grizzly definitely make for a snappier and more responsive engine, we still think it's time for Yamaha, a self-proclaimed motor company, to release a more competitively powered Grizzly. It's the Grizzly's chassis and suspension that's received the majority of the improvements in 2014. Previous Grizzly models rode fine, but suffered from excessive chassis roll in the corners that often resulted in the inside rear wheel lifting off the ground during hard cornering. The problem we saw was twofold. First, the chassis and suspension were just too narrow, and second, the tires were just too tall and soft. A complete front and rear suspension redesign has netted the Grizzly 2 more inches in width, but it's comprised of much more than just longer A-arms. Both front and rear suspension setups have been reworked to provide a wider stance, longer stroking shock, and optimized geometry. The goal was flatter cornering, a plusher, smoother ride, and overall more precise and predictable handling. It only took a few miles on the trail to conclude these changes work really well. Where the old Grizz would roll onto its outside front tire in the corners, the new Grizzly stays flatter. Where the old Grizzly felt nervous in the front end, especially under braking, the new one feels completely settled and stable. Small bump compliance is drastically improved without sacrificing large bump resistance. Older Grizzly models always left me wondering if I was actually using all the available wheel travel in the bumps. But you can literally feel the increase in shock stroke on the new one, leaving no doubts the suspension is cycling all the way through. A new power steering system addresses one major complaint we had with old EPS-equipped Grizzlies. The new system is both speed and torque sensing and adjusts the level of output based on the vehicle speed, rider inputs, inputs from the wheels, and the currently selected 4x4 setting. Steering is light, it's predictable, but most importantly, it's stable, even at higher speeds. The off-center feeling of the old linear system is replaced with definite on-center confidence. We think the biggest problem with the 2014 Grizzly is that it really doesn't look any different than the 2013 model. Despite changes and upgrades that significantly improve the vehicle, the consumer may not even notice. On the other hand, this Grizzly is a good deal. It's slightly more than a Sportsman 570, but less than a similarly equipped Outlander 650. With improved bottom end pull, updated power steering, and vastly improved ride and handling, the 2014 Grizzly has impressed all of us here at DirtTrax, and we think it'll impress you too.
DirtTrax is sponsored by Triton Trailers. Know it, own it, haul it.
Well, this is it. The Project 800 RZR is nearing completion, and while I do have a few more key pieces to add to the build, I think that this might be one of the coolest that I've ever done. Your base RZR doesn't need to be retired, it needs to be revitalized, and we showed you through the use of Super ATV parts that you can do just that. Our now 60-inch wide rig is fully tricked out with the gear we believe is needed to get out and have the most fun, ride hard, and still keep your buddies wondering if that's your old rig or if you went out and bought a new one. And today I have a few more key pieces to add to this build. Is it usable in its current condition? Well, sure it is, but I want a vehicle that stands out. And right out of the gate, we need some rugged, good looks. Ditch the steel, let's get aluminum. And thanks to our friends at ITP, we have a set of sweet-looking Black Ops SS216 rims mounted to 27-inch Blackwater Evolution tires. These tires are 8 plies of radial, non-directional goodness and are purpose-built for heavier side-by-side vehicles and the abuse they deliver. These are not only super slick looking, they're incredibly more functional and also add a few more inches of width to our already broad-shouldered RZR. If you're gonna be out on the trails, we all know just how important a winch can be, not just for getting your buddies unstuck, but for getting you unstuck when you're riding solo. The 4,500-pound Super ATV Deluxe Winch Kit and RZR install bracket are big value. Everything you need is included, from a wireless winch remote and synthetic line to a full winching kit that features a 50-foot synthetic extension, 2 D-rings, a tree saver, pulley block, gloves, and a handy carry bag that fits nicely into our handy rear cargo box that doubles as a cooler on those days you need some ice. We finished up our Super ATV parts with the RZR Complete Dress Kit that includes a whole host of sweet billet aluminum parts to set your ride apart from the rest. Super ATV truly thinks of everything. While it has been a lot of pieces and our RZR doesn't look much like when we started, the truth is all the parts have been easy to order and easy to install. I guess you could say it's plug and play, or better yet, bolt and ride. And speaking of riding, the true test is to ride. So I took the RZR out to the track to see just how much better the ITP Blackwater Evos work. And man, was I blown away. These tires bite, grab, and grip everything they contact. In the corners, the RZR sticks like crazy glue and goes precisely where you want it to. High-speed control is perfect, and the strong 8-ply carcass stays firm in the corners, not displaying any roll. While the tires look incredible, the truth is, they perform even better.
I hadn't had the opportunity to give the Phantom piggyback shocks a real good test, but my spring preload is set, my clickers are adjusted, and I'm ready to take these things out and show them some real-world abuse.
While I did have to crank the preload to nearly 75%, I found a setting that allowed some sag. The clickers are easy and toolless to adjust and do give you enough control to dial the ride. I was able to launch the RZR over 50 feet, land smooth, and continue this lap after lap. The real test of a shock is not just one day's abuse. but repeated riding. And while I can't speak to the durability of the Phantom Shocks, I can tell you they work very well.
My goal for this build was to show that you can take your stock 50-inch RZR and without trading it in, breathe new life into it and upgrade it, keeping it current. I think I was able to do just that, and after watching the whole series, now you can too.
DirtTrax Television has been sponsored by Polaris, the ultimate in off-road vehicles. Can-Am, the ride says it all. MBRP Performance Exhaust, making power with MBRP. Arctic Cat, share our passion. And by Honda. Check out the growing family of Honda ATVs and side-by-sides.
If you enjoyed this video, post a comment and let us know what you think. Then, click this link to subscribe and that link for more great videos from DirtTrax TV.